So Halloween, and obviously if you're a horror fan, I mean, I maybe this is ridiculous to say because not all diehard horror fans are diehard Halloween fans, but there's a lot of correlation there, right? Halloween for a lot of people is a gateway drug into horror movies. For me, it was a Nightmare on Elm Street. That was my gateway drug into horror movies. But for a lot of people, Halloween kind of fits that role in their life. And they got into horror because they love Halloween. If you were born in the 80s, Scream, like the late 80s, Scream is probably that movie for you. I love Scream, but Nightmare on Elm Street was that movie for me. So that's all well and good, right? And you tend to be very protective over the franchises that kind of bring you into a world. It's like Star Wars to me was my youth. I associate much of my childhood with Star Wars, which is why I'm so pissed off at Disney for shitting all over it. I probably wouldn't care as much if I was just a casual Star Wars fan. But as a passionate Star Wars fan who identifies with Star Wars, at least in terms of that when I was a kid, was something I was really into. I get pretty pissed off when Disney just takes a shit all over it. Takes a shit all over Luke Skywalker, makes him into Jake Beta Skywalker. I have a problem with that. Okay? When you turn Han Solo into a bad father, I got a problem with that. And then you yeet him off of a fucking bridge. I got a bit of a problem with that. But Halloween is a lot of people's, like, that's Halloween is for them. So this most recent trilogy, which, look, this most recent trilogy wasn't great. It isn't great. David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy is not spectacular. It's not phenomenal. And I think we got to start there. I liked Halloween 2018. I actually enjoyed Halloween 2018. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was offensive or bad in any way. I actually thought it was entertaining. I think the more that I go back, I think I heard Cody Leach say this, but I kind of align with this. The more I go back and watch that movie, the more respect I have for it, the more I actually kind of enjoy it. It's a movie that I can go back to and watch. I think it's an enjoyable ride. I think Michael Myers in that movie, who is played by James Jude Courtney, is potentially the best Michael Myers. And maybe that's controversial. I don't know. But in my opinion, I think James Jude Courtney does a great job as the Shape. And in all honesty, it's kind of just an interesting, like, we're coming back. We're ignoring a lot of the sequels. We're coming back. I always kind of hate that shit too. Like, why do we got to skip all these sequels to enjoy your movie? Why couldn't you have baked those sequels in? And I get it. Halloween got kind of weird. But I thought Halloween 2018 was okay. Halloween Kills is awful. It's an awful movie. It's the worst of the trilogy. I'm going to say, there's my first hot take of the show. Halloween Kills is significantly worse than Halloween Ends. And all of these people who are criticizing Halloween Ends for not sticking the landing, they need to go back and watch Halloween Kills, because Halloween Kills is a much worse movie. Halloween Kills is one that I never want to go back and revisit. I have gone back and revisited it, and I never have a good time when I do. I think I lose respect for it more every time I go back and watch it. The social commentary that's just jammed into that movie that's so obvious. There's a lot of shit in there about mob mentality and things like that that's just so unnecessary. I remember the villagers, the people of the town of Haddonfield, are chasing this like killer guy that they think is Michael, but the guy doesn't look anything like Michael Myers. He's like 7 feet too short and overweight. He doesn't look anything like Michael, so I don't understand any of that. There's the idiocy of Allison, who basically gets people killed. It's a bad movie. Laurie Strode spends the entire time almost like in a hospital bed flirting with Frank, and they have this like flowery purple prose dialogue with each other where they're talking about evil, and there's all these monologues and BS. Halloween Kills sucked. Laurie's daughter, whose name I can't even remember it. She just acts like an idiot in that movie too. It just sucks. And then you get Halloween Ends. And so this movie, it's fair to say, pretty divisive, right? I've seen YouTube videos where people are saying this is the worst movie ever. Can't believe you would do this to Michael. Can't believe you would do this to the franchise. How could you mess this up? Yada 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 yada, right? Just all kinds of opinions. And then I've seen videos praising this movie, acting as if it does nothing wrong, as if this is the quintessential Michael Myers Halloween film. This is the golden egg that Halloween should strive for, and what an artistic vision by David Gordon Green. And where do I fall? Well, I fall firmly in the middle of those two opinions. That's where I kind of align. I think that this is a good movie. I think the first half of this movie is a really good movie. And then I think it gets a little dumber. And then by the end, I think we're fully onto the dumb train. We're diving right in. The end is what really ruins this movie. As a matter of fact, the marketing for the movie, the fact that this is the third act in a trilogy, and the fact that they act like this is the bow to wrap everything up. Those are the things that really ruin this movie. Because as a standalone film, if you take Michael Myers out of this movie, I actually think this is a solid movie. They do a lot of things right. It's the fact that Michael Myers is even in this movie at all, in the state that he's in, and the shape that he's in this movie, that I think ruins this movie. So I want to go and I want to look, and I'm going to do this here, and we're going to take a look at where Rotten Tomatoes sits on this film. Because I think that's kind of interesting and telling. If you look here, the tomato meter for this film is a 40%, and the audience score is a 57%. And that's a little worse than I would have expected, honestly, because of the 50-50 nature that I've seen in terms of reactions of this film. Sitting at 40% for critics and 57% for audiences is a bit interesting to me. The critics' consensus here, what to know from Rotten Tomatoes, says that it for now it's a frequently befuddling installment that's stabbed, slashed, and beaten by a series of frustrating missed opportunities. So I guess the interesting question here is, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that sentiment? Let's go read some of the critics. They say this is Halloween Ends. I say, can we get that in writing? Yeah, this guy, Richard Roper. Yeah, okay. Look at all the top critics. Don't like it. Dylan Roth, an engaging and suspenseful psychological thriller that could have functioned totally independent. I agree with that. I agree with that. I disagree with this. It works in concert with what's most interesting about Green's print. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And as a matter of fact, that's the problem of the film. That's what people are bitching about. The truth is, that's the weakness here. It doesn't work in concert with the two previous films. As a matter of fact, if you take the two previous films and you try to watch this one right after them, this feels like a completely different movie. This is completely different. The character motivations are different. The setting is semi-different, feels different at least. The tone is different. Everything is different about this film than the previous two entries, which is why I think this movie is being judged so harshly, because it is the third of those movies. But there's a lot that works here. I mean, take these critics. Actually, let's check out. I don't care about the critics. There are no featured audience reviews at this time. Look at this. This franchise of 13 sequels is finally running out of steam. Are you kidding me? Have you seen Halloween Resurrection? Definitely not what we're hoping for. It's not a bad movie, but it's a bad Halloween movie. That's an interesting take. I can certainly understand that take. Halloween 3 isn't a bad Halloween movie. Halloween 3 is actually one of the best Halloween movies, if not the best. Perhaps that's a hot take. Don't really care. The only reason I'm giving the 4.5 stars is because Corey died. Well, spoiler alert, by the way. I guess, well, shit. If I was planning on not going into spoilers, I guess that got ruined by this review. And by the way, what a jackass. Who is hey, Justin D. Why don't you not spoil the damn movie in your little reviews? You know, people might want to come and read these reviews before you write this garbage, and you're going to just right out of the gate, first sentence in, you're going to spoil it. You're going to spoil it. And if you liked his character way more than you thought you were going to, why are you happy he died? I do, however, get this. I do agree with this. This movie gets so much unnecessary hate. Who missed the obvious point this Halloween is trying to make? Obvious. I don't think it's very obvious. Essentially, it is about evil that truly doesn't die and that anyone can be in the essence of evil. Evil died twice this movie. Okay, yeah, sure. Sure. But I don't know that I would jump to say that they made it that very clear in the movie. The movie is about transformation. He's not wrong. That's what the movie's about. And you can see that right from the beginning of the film with the pumpkins that are like going in and out of each other. The sense is that evil can take multiple forms. Evil can, the face of evil changes, right? But evil can always exist. It also kind of plays on the idea that this town is cursed by Michael Myers and the people are cursed and yada, yada, yada. There are some things that worked about Halloween Ends, and there are some things that don't work. And like I said at the beginning of this video, really the biggest thing that doesn't work is the fact that this is the third act in that trilogy. So I guess I sort of agree that this isn't, it shouldn't have been a Halloween movie. Okay, fine. Again, I can understand that take. But I don't know if the problem is that this is a Halloween movie or if that this is like, you know, just a different take, just a different, and because it's the third act in this series, people are expecting something different. So I'm actually kind of glad we got something different because in all honesty, there's only so much I can take of just Michael doing the same shit over and over again with no change, no adjustments, no, nothing new. And so I'm sort of glad that they took some risks, I'm sort of glad that they did some things differently here. Some of it was done really well. Again, the beginning of the movie, the middle of the movie, up until Michael really gets involved. And when Michael really gets involved, that's when things kind of fall apart a little bit. When they're playing on this idea of Corey, and spoilers again, who accidentally kills this kid, this little bastard kid, by the way, little son of a bitch. Corey accidentally kills this kid, and he has to live with that. He's living with that. And the town won't let him move on. They won't let him live a normal life. They won't let him kind of exist outside of this act that he committed. And the town's kind of shitty to him. And these kids, these band kids, which by the way, why would you pick band kids to be your bullies? Band kids at my school were bullied. So if new high school band kids are the cool kids, well, things have certainly changed. Things have certainly changed. But they pick on him and shit. And so that's where the story really works. You have this idea of Corey who's trying to move on from this act that he accidentally committed earlier in his life. And then you have Allison who's trying to move on from the events that happened to her in her life. So you have these two parallels. Laurie too. But Laurie is kind of handled outside of this a little bit, even though she's kind of the catalyst for all of this sort of, that's kind of a weird, she's the catalyst for Allison being involved. But you have these two heads of the coin where you have Allison, who's the victim, who's kind of looked at as a hero, and you have Corey, who's the villain, who's looked at as evil and damaged. So you have these two damaged people who find each other, and they can see sort of the holes in each other. And that to me is the best part of this movie. That relationship is actually handled very well, in my opinion. And if you know people like this, if you know people who have gone through traumatic events, this is not an unrealistic portrayal of how this relationship might play out, might look. It's also not an unrealistic idea that these two might find each other and be enamored with each other and attracted to each other, because they might see in each other kind of their holes and they want to fix each other. It's like kind of an interesting thing, right? So I loved all that. I actually thought that was done very well. Laurie in this movie is a little insufferable. I know some people like her more in this movie because she's not waxing poetic about evil, but I actually found her to be slightly insufferable in this movie because she's almost like too funny and goofy and stupid. She like has a line in the movie where she talks about showing fear her tits or something like that. It's just fucking dumb, to be honest with you, which is fine, whatever. When the movie really goes off the rails is when Corey kind of gets pushed off the bridge by these shitty band kids. And then he gets pulled into this tunnel by Michael, and Michael kind of like chokes him. And then like there's some sort of like implied transfer of evil from Michael into Corey. So it's kind of like it's just this weird moment that they don't really explain to you, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I'm all for, directors, and I'm all for movies not over explaining things, but there are certain situations where you should explain something so people can understand what the fuck is going on. And in this scene, when Michael kind of grabs Corey to choke him, it's really hard to understand what's happening here. But it seems like the idea is that there's some sort of transfer of evil from Michael to Corey. It's just really hard to understand that. They don't make it very clear. So that happens. And then we get where the movie kind of falls off. Because after that, Corey becomes kind of evil. He starts to be corrupted by this evil, and then he starts killing a bunch of people. And that's when the movie gets like weird to me. There's like one scene in particular that Halloween fans are really pissed about. And it's where Corey just beats the shit out of Michael Myers and takes his mask. And a lot of Halloween fans are pissed because it's like, why would you bitch out Michael like that? Like, why would you make Michael some bitch that just gets his ass kicked by Corey? And I think the idea of the movie, I think what they were going for is that Michael is weak. They sort of tease that he like gets stronger as he kills people. But that's also sort of weird because it's like, dude, he slaughtered a fucking village worth of people at the end of Halloween Kills. How is he not like, why did he go hide then? Wouldn't he be out actively just slaughtering people to try to get as strong as he possibly could? It just didn't make a lot of sense. Now, they do kind of highlight in the movie that all these people are missing. So it does kind of make you think like Michael's, killing these people, and that's why they're missing. So the movie kind of falls off there. There's a lot of like weird. Corey at the end of the movie like kills himself. And he does it because he wants to ruin Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie's relationship with Allison. And he knows that by committing suicide, by doing this, she'll blame Laurie for his death. It's kind of interesting because I kind of love that and I hate it at the same time. It's like absolutely the most awful, evil, dickish thing you could do in that situation. So I kind of like that it's just like ultimate evil. Motherfucker is going to kill himself to ruin other people's lives, which is evil. So I can like it from that perspective, but I don't think it really fits with like Corey's character up till this point. He wants to kind of run away with Allison. He's like trying to burn shit down so that he can run away, and all of a sudden he just decides to off himself. It's just kind of weird. And then you get the most egregious part of the movie, and this is where the movie absolutely falls into the dog shit category. Like if you think this movie is dog shit, it's probably because of the very end. Michael all of a sudden shows up, gets his mask back, has to fight Laurie again, of course, because we got to do this yet again. They fight in what's a pretty mediocre battle between the two of them. Honestly, Halloween 2018 was a better battle. I thought Halloween H2O handled this a lot better. So we get this battle. Laurie ends up winning. Allison comes in and helps her. And then the whole town like carries Michael to a scrapyard, and then they throw him in, and his body just gets mangled and destroyed. You get to see it. It's actually a pretty cool visual, but outside of the visual, and then they show Laurie's kind of living a happy life. She gets to be with Frank. Allison's leaving the town. She's headed off to start a new life somewhere else, and that's the end of it. The crazy thing is that I like this movie enough that I've gone back and watched it again, and I want to watch it again. So this movie keeps bringing me back. So I can't say it's a bad movie. I actually think it's a good movie. Again, the first half of this movie is really good. It's everything with Michael that makes this movie bad. I'm so curious as to what the original idea was here, because the rumors are that this changed a lot with COVID. This changed a ton during COVID, because this got delayed because of COVID, and that the story here changed a ton during that time. So I'm very curious as to what the original story was and what the original intent was. Did the studio, were they the ones who forced Michael into this movie? Maybe they were going to go a completely different direction, because the title scene is very much like the actual title card is very much like Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is the one that Michael's not even in. So it's just interesting. The fans' reactions to this movie, of course, have been nothing but ridiculous. In a sense that people are going batshit crazy about this, or they're going batshit crazy for it. And again, I don't think this movie warrants either one. It's certainly not a masterpiece. It's certainly not a giant pile of shit. The end is a giant pile of shit. But outside of that, it's a fairly decent movie. 2 stars, 2 or 3 stars out of 5. Somewhere in there. That's where this movie belongs. It doesn't belong in the 1 star out of 5 category. It doesn't belong in the 5 stars out of 5 category. It's firmly somewhere in between the 2 to 3 stars. And that's what I would give it. I would give it 3 stars because I liked it more than I disliked it. I very much disliked the end.